Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
I was very pleased with myself as I drove from the long-term parking garage at the airport and headed home. I was 2 days early. I had tried to let Grace, my wife, know, but the phone was busy every time I tried to call. She must have been online. She spent a lot of time on the computer. I tried to reach her on the cell phone again and again as I made the almost 2-hour drive home. Busy, busy, busy. As I entered town, I did a double take on a car I saw parked in front of a motel. It looked like Grace's car. Wow, that was the first car I had ever seen that looked just like her little pink Miata. 10 minutes later, I pulled up in front of the house and pushed the garage door opener. Her car wasn't in the garage. I went in the house and headed directly for the office. The glow of the computer monitor greeted me. I reached to turn it off. I stopped and sat at the desk. I looked at the screensaver and reached out with one finger and hit a key. The screen changed to a chat room page. The page was filled with a conversation between Grace and someone referred to as ST. I could not believe what I read. It was hot, sexy stuff. It soon became evident that Grace had been having an affair with him for some time. In the last entry, he told her he was real hot and needed to screw her. Could she meet him at the usual place to spend the night? She replied, yes, yes, yes. I sat there in total shock. I couldn't think. I left the computer on and went back to my car. I closed the garage door and headed back towards the motel where I had seen her car. It was still there. I found a place to park across the street where I could watch her car. As I waited, I called my best friend, who was also my attorney. His secretary told me he was out of the office and she would have him call me. Then it struck me like a shot to the head. His name was Sam Thurston. I looked across the street and recognized his car parked next to her Miata. I sat and tried to figure what to do. Confront them? Leave and act like I knew nothing? Sam knew all my business dealings. With his help, she could pluck me like a chicken. Play it cool, I thought. I needed help. I racked my brain. Where could I turn? Then I had it. I grabbed my briefcase and got out my address book. I looked up an old friend. He answered the phone. Jack, this is Phil. How are you? Hey, I am fine. Where are you? Still on the West Coast? No, I am back home. Well, almost home. I need your help and advice desperately. Can I come and talk with you? Sure, come on over. I'll be looking for you. I'll see you in about an hour. I had plenty of time to think as I drove the 50-some miles to his office. His receptionist greeted me and said he was waiting in his office. I knocked and opened the door and went in. We hugged and shook hands. He led me to a couple of easy chairs and asked how he could help me. I told him what I had discovered on my return home. I explained to him my worries about Sam being my attorney and doing so much work for my company. He looked at me and said nothing. He picked up the phone beside him. Will you please see if Steve and Betty can come in here? He looked at me and said, I want these guys to hear this too. There was a light tap on the door and it opened. A very attractive woman entered, followed by a tall, thin man. They sat in the other two chairs and listened to my story. She took notes and asked a few questions. I told them that I had been away a lot lately on business. I was working on getting contracts to build aircraft parts for a very big company on the West Coast. The initial bid had been on contracts worth over $1 million. I won that bid. I was then asked if I were interested in bidding on another job. I had looked it over. It was ideal for my company. We already had the equipment and tools needed to do the job. Also, I had found an error in their math which would make the job much easier. I had disclosed this to no one. The second job would be for $200 million with a 10% profit in it for me. They had accepted my bid. They would not announce the bid results until the following month. I really do not want either of them to get 1 cent of that money. Can your people handle the legal on the contracts and the divorce and keep her from taking me to the cleaners? Phil, you are in good hands. Steve is our corporate attorney and Betty handles our domestic cases. I am sure they have lots of questions for you. Betty smiled at me. Mr. Burke, I believe you said you are not due home until day after tomorrow. Is that correct? Yes, I was due home Friday. If necessary, could you delay your return another day or so? Sure, no problem. Betty looked at me. This can be really dirty if you want it that way, or we may be able to negotiate the whole thing very quietly. The more ammunition we have, the better. I have a very, very good detective who works for me. If you approve it and sign the appropriate releases, he can retrieve all the information from your computer. We may be able to obtain video evidence of her infidelity. Would that bother you? Listen, I feel betrayed and angered by what they have done. Gather the evidence. If they are seriously in love with each other, we can deal with it one way. If it is just sex play, that is something else. I don't know which is worse. How they handle it when I come back will tell me a lot. If they confess to me before they find out I know anything, I might have a little mercy. I am not inclined that way right now, however. Get everything you can. I would love to know how long this has been going on. I want to know if he is the only one. All that good stuff. She said, that sounds reasonable. Stay in close touch. I will call my guy and see what he needs and when he can meet with you. If we can get her out of your house for a couple of hours, he can do a whole bunch of things. His office may be possible too. We will see. It will not be cheap. I grinned at her. Just do it. It will be worth it. She got up and left the room. I was really sorry to see her go. Jack grinned at me. She is something, isn't she? She is my ex-daughter-in-law. She caught my boy cheating on her. She will help you. Steve and I sat and talked for an hour. He had some damn good ideas. There was not a lot we could do until the detective got us something to work with. Steve left, and Jack asked me to spend the night with him. I couldn't refuse. We had a nice dinner at his place. His wife Angel was terrific, very supportive and caring. I had only met her twice before. After dinner we sat and talked of old times when he was my boss. He commanded the Navy SEAL detachment I was assigned to as a young officer. We had a number of wild adventures together. He was a fearless leader. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept seeing my wife screwing my best friend. Doesn't make for a good night's sleep. Angel fixed a nice breakfast for us in the morning, and I followed Jack to his office. Betty was waiting for us with a nice-looking young man. He was the detective, Tom Greer. I signed some papers for him and told him everything I knew about my wife and Sam. He asked me to call Grace and tell her I was going to have to stay a couple of days longer than I had expected. The main thing was to find out where Grace was going to be for the next few hours. I called and talked to her, and she said she was just leaving to play tennis. Then she was going to lunch, and then she was going to do some shopping. Great, said Tom. Let's get going. Betty looked at me. I heard you say you loved her. She didn't say that to you. Does she usually do that? Yeah, she used to. I can't say when she stopped saying that. I'll be here when you guys get back, or I will be at Jack's. We will see you later. Tom was very good. He installed 3 video cameras and copied everything from our computer. He bugged my phones and hid a recorder and transmitter in the brush behind my house. I showed him the way to Sam Thurston's office. I waited a few blocks away while he somehow bugged Sam's phone and office. When he called on his walkie-talkie, I picked him up around the corner. I asked how in the world he was able to get in his office to plant a bug. He grinned and said it only took a second to do it. He said he asked the secretary if her boss was in, and when she said no, he said he didn't believe her and barged right in. He just needed to get in the door and turned and came back out. She was dialing the police when he told her he was leaving and that he would be back to see Mr. Cooper in the morning with his own attorney. The secretary said, "Wait, this is Mr. Thurston's office. Cooper is next door." He apologized and left. As we drove back, Tom looked over at me. "Don't do anything to hurt Betty. She is a special person. I am not going to ever hurt her. I am a married man. I will try and see her when I am free. I have never been so attracted to any woman in my whole life." Hey, anyone who sees the two of you look at each other can tell it is going to happen. You have got to be kidding me. She is strictly business. Listen, she is just as hot for you as you are for her. I have known her for 5 years. I have never seen her react to any other man like she does to you. You are a damned lucky guy. We got back to her office and I helped him carry several large cases into Betty's office where he connected some cables to her computer. There was a little control box he showed us how to operate. As he was talking, a little green light came on. He flipped a switch and the screen on Betty's computer went from the screensaver to a picture of Grace walking through the living room. She disappeared and the picture changed to one of our bedroom. She sat on the bed and kicked off her shoes. She picked up the phone and hit a speed dial number. "Hi, sugar. What are you up to?" A pause. "When did he check out?" Pause. "He could be back in town. Do you think he knows?" Pause. "Right, if he hasn't suspected anything in 3 years, he is not likely to now. Let me call on his cell phone and see if I can get him. I'll call you back. Bye, sweetie." She pushed a couple of buttons and my cell phone rang. Betty held her hand up flat, so I let it ring. It rang twice more and she nodded for me to answer it. I put it on speaker and answered. "Hello, is that you, Grace? Who are you expecting? Paris Hilton?" "Yeah. She keeps pestering me. Calls all the time. How are you?" "Fine. When can I expect you home so I can make reservations somewhere nice for dinner?" "Well, it looks like it will be Friday at the earliest before I can wrap things up here." As I was talking, Betty said loudly, "Come on, big guy. Let's party." Grace said, "Who was that? Who are you with? Where are you?" "I am at the plant. You heard some of the secretaries talking to each other. I moved to a motel to be closer to the plant. Saves me lots of time." "What is the number at the motel?" "I'll have to call you with it when I get back there." "Okay. Okay. What's that music I hear?" "Oh, it's break time, and they play it on the speakers. I'll call you later. Bye." Bye. I clicked off. We watched Grace sit and think. She stood and pulled off her clothes and flopped back on the bed. She picked up the phone again. Hey Sammy, he is still out on the coast. I think the scumsucker is cheating on me. He was with some bimbo who kept wanting to party. Pause. Yeah, I'd love to catch him too. Don't know how though. When are you coming over? I am tired of motels. I like my own bed. I'll leave the garage door open. Just drive right in. Okay. Pause. Bye. I'll be waiting. She got off the bed and headed for the bathroom. She returned in about 5 minutes and went to her dresser and removed some clothes and put them on the bed. More posing. She wore her hair short, so she just brushed it out and patted it in place. One last check in the mirror, and she walked out of sight. The screen went black. It came back on with a view of the living room. She went to the bar and made 2 drinks. She put them both on the coffee table and went to the kitchen, and we heard the garage door open. She returned with a silver bowl full of nuts that she also put on the coffee table. I looked around the office. Betty looked up at me and said, "She is really beautiful, isn't she?" I had to agree. Jack had joined us too. He just said, "Damn." We heard the garage door close and a man entered the room. It was Sam. Grace jumped up and ran to him. He kissed her for a long time. Then he held her at arm length and told her how gorgeous she was. They kissed again before they sat down. He sipped his drink, then leaned over and pulled the negligee aside and kissed her. I got up and walked over to the window and looked out. I heard Sam say, "So you think old Philip is shacking up out there, do you?" It sure sounded that way. Well, he always bragged to me about how much he got when he was out of town. He did? That just doesn't sound like him. I never knew him to brag about anything. Not to you, but he did to me, his old buddy. I turned and said, "Not true. Never happened." Betty walked over to me and put a tiny handkerchief to my eyes to wipe away the tears. I put my head down on her shoulder and cried like a baby. She held me and patted my back. Finally, I stood and said, "Well, I think I got that out of my system. Thank you very, very much for being there for me." Betty said, "No problem. My shoulder is available to you anytime. I think we all need a good stiff drink." I looked back at the screen to see Sam carrying my wife toward the bedroom. I had to turn away again. Jack said, "You don't have to watch this. Betty needs to listen for other things we would like to have on tape. Let's you and I take a walk." I glanced at the screen and saw Grace's in a very compromising situation. I walked out the door. Betty came out and joined us. She gave me a small sad smile. I smiled back. She said, "I know exactly how you feel. I caught my husband in bed with my best friend." I looked at her. He was crazy. "Thank you. I know it doesn't make you feel any better, but I do share your feelings." "Oh yes, it does. It shows I am not the only stupid fool in the world. Actually, I guess there are vast legions of us. Sex is a very powerful drive. I guess the shrinks would say it was our fault because we didn't satisfy their needs. I sure tried. I thought I gave her everything she wanted. All she had to do was ask if I didn't know what she wanted. I guess I should have known she wasn't happy. I thought she was. She never once dressed for me like she did for him. I did all that and more, and my husband still cheated on me." "You dressed up like that?" "I sure did. I don't know if I looked that good, but I tried. I dressed as a 304, as a schoolgirl, or anything else he wanted. I tried to fulfill his every fantasy. I have to confess I enjoyed it. I loved trying to please him." I saw a tear in her eye. I reached for her hand. "It still hurts, doesn't it?" "Yes, it does. Neither of us will ever forget what was done to us. Our worlds were shattered. How can you forget that?" I stopped and looked at her, still holding her hand. I raised it slowly to my lips and kissed it softly. Maybe a person can find another love to ease the hurt. I hope and pray a person can do that. I know we both have a lot of love left to give the right person. I am just afraid of being hurt again. I know. It leaves you vulnerable again. But I am sure that the right person can cure my pain. I have to believe that, or life is pointless. You are right. I feel the same way. I am still looking. Please wait for me. I will conquer this hurt and be a new man soon. I want to know you better. I am attracted to you more than I have ever been to any other woman, including that one." I jerked a finger toward the office. "I feel the same way about you. I will wait as long as it takes." I pulled her to me and very gently kissed her sweet lips. God, where did that come from? I got excited. I pulled away and turned from her. I heard her sob and she had her hands over her face. What did I do? Do I taste bad? What happened? I took her hands. "Sweet girl, nothing is wrong with you. It is me. I didn't want to scare you." She looked at me. "What do you mean?" "Baby girl, when I kissed you I got excited instantly. That has never ever happened before. It startled me, and I didn't want to scare you. She grinned at me. I have to confess, I felt the same way when you kissed me. We sat and grinned at each other. I said, let's get this damn divorce over with. I won't kiss or touch you until then. Don't wish for what you may not want. If I put all my efforts behind it, it could happen very fast. I looked in her eyes. Please hurry. The next day, Betty asked me to come to her office. When I got there, she told me she had some tapes I should see. She sat me down and told me that this was going to be rough. She flipped a switch. The screen showed Grace sitting on our bed. Four big guys with big tools surrounded her. I turned and walked away. Betty turned it off. She flipped another switch and the screen showed Grace and Sam lying in my bed talking. He told her to take me to the cleaners. He told her he would handle a divorce for her for 1/4 of the money. She said she would think about it. She said she was happy the way things were now. She had all the free time in the world and could screw whoever she wanted. She lived in a nice house, had a new car, and all she had to do was screw Phil once or twice a month. She has it made, said Betty. She doesn't want a divorce. I said, I have news for her. I desperately want to be free of that backstabbing 304. I don't want her to get a penny. I know that is probably not possible, but please try. 3 weeks later, I watched a meeting between Betty and Grace on a monitor. Betty had told her she had papers for her to sign, and that it was in her best interest to be there. Betty showed her selected parts of the tape she had. She said, you have 2 choices. You can sign these papers, which give you 1/2 of the proceeds from the sale of the house, and your car paid in full plus $50,000 in cash as a settlement for a divorce. The other option is you go to court for a jury trial and see what you get. We have 15 hours of these videos. What do you want to do? I need an answer by noon tomorrow. Grace got up and left the office without saying a word. Betty, Jack and I sat and talked. We were waiting to see what would happen. The first reaction was from the bug in Sam's office when Grace stormed in and asked him what she was supposed to do now. He said he couldn't help her. He was in a world of trouble himself. He was facing disbarment proceedings for violating numerous ethics codes. He had just been informed that he no longer represented me or my company. He screamed, that is $250,000 a year down the drain. They yelled and screamed at each other for a half an hour until he threw her out of his office, saying he never wanted to see her again. I looked at Jack and Betty. I guess I should be happy, but I am just sad. That they are badly hurt doesn't help a bit. I just want it over with. I need to get on with my life. I looked at Jack. Dear friend, find me a good-sized piece of rural property near here. Someplace good to raise kids. Lots of kids. Do you know a nice gal who might be interested to raising a bunch of kids with me? Jack grinned. I may have someone in mind. He turned and looked at Betty. Are you available? Hell yes. Let me get this over with, and I'll drag his butt to a preacher so fast your head will spin. Happens I love him. I warn you right now before it is too late. When I have to go to the West Coast on business, you go too. She grinned at me. I don't know. They say variety is the spice of life. Just let me know. That game should be played for both of us. I felt a chill run down my spine. I don't want to play. If you want anything but a strictly monogamous marriage, you have the wrong guy. No, I don't have the wrong guy. I will be your only playmate. And don't forget it. The next morning, Grace was there to sign the papers. I was not present. After she signed everything, Grace looked at Betty. Are you married? You don't wear a ring? No, I am single. Let me give you a little advice. Grab Phil and marry him. He was the best husband a woman could possibly have. I still love him, but I need other men too. I am damned to live in hell. Goodbye. Remember, don't let him get away. That night I took the whole gang out to celebrate. Betty had told us she would hand walk my papers through the courthouse, and with any luck, I should be a free man tomorrow afternoon. After dinner, Betty and I went to several clubs for dancing. So many guys kept asking her to dance. I was not a real happy camper. I didn't want to act like the jealous fool I was. I suggested we go elsewhere for some country music. The next place was worse. Betty said, let's get out of here and go to your place. I am danced out and I think I only danced with you 4 times all night. Gee, I'm not tired at all. Of course not. You just sat and watched. I know, because I never took my eyes off of you. I was afraid you would dance with someone else. Then that slinky blonde grabbed you and I couldn't stand it. Let's get out of here. She is looking this way. Oh, really? Where is she? Come on, before I have to scratch her eyes out. We went to the hotel suite I was renting. This was her first time there. I could not believe how much nicer the place became when she walked in. How could that tiny girl make everything seem so much brighter and yet cozier? She was still wearing her business suit, and I helped her take off the jacket. We sat on the couch and talked. I asked if she would like a drink, saying I only had rum. She said she would love a light drink. I fixed us both light drinks of spiced rum with a twist of lime and soda water. She liked it. I told her I needed to learn lots of things about her. Her dress sizes, her ring size, and how tall she was and how much she weighed. All that good stuff. She giggled. Are you writing a book? Maybe, but in my wanderings I see things I think you would love, and I would love to get them for you, but I am like most guys at guessing sizes. Terrible. Well, I am almost 5 feet tall, and I weigh almost 100 pounds. Mostly I wear a 3 or small size dress. Hell, just take me everywhere with you. I kissed her softly. She pulled me to her and slipped her tongue between my lips. Damn, she could turn me on. I stood up and lifted her in my arms and carried her to the bed. She smiled and said, I think it is time for this. I need you right now or I'll die. She unbuttoned her blouse and threw it to a chair. She looked at me. She was beautiful, gorgeous. She held her arms out to me. I held her tight and kissed her passionately. We fell on the bed together. She sighed and opened her eyes with a dazzling smile. It was wonderful, better than I had envisioned in my dreams. I loved it. I loved everything you just did. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.